Hey there, I'm Sully, and as always, welcome to the Gun Club. Alrighty, got a few things I wanted to go over, a few really interesting legal cases or laws that are passing, a few things I want to touch on, sort of editorialize and let everyone know my opinions on these wonderful ideas and whether these ideas are worth a crap or not. We'll see. We'll talk about those. And then I want to go on a little bit further. I've got a really nice good guy with a gun story. And then we're probably going to do a little Rumble transition, a little Rumble shift, and go exclusively onto Rumble. Thank you for joining us. Tonight is Tuesday, March 26th. And let's get into this stuff, see what we got here. Well, legal issues. First legal issue I want to get into is Delaware, the great state of Delaware. Yes, I know, Delaware. Little bitty hole in the wall. It's wonderful tax haven for corporations, great place for people to hide their money from the government and do lots of other things. I mean, let's face it, we know there's been many, many wonderful human beings up in Delaware who have done many wonderful things for humanity, and just not really a bastion for firearms-related freedom, though. They actually are one of the worst states, in my opinion, for firearms laws, and they're trying it again. They're trying to institute, it's recently passed both houses of the state legislature and likely to be signed very soon, if it hasn't already by this moment, a permit to purchase. And what that will require is anyone living in the great state of Delaware, if you want to purchase a handgun, you will have to go to the state police and you will have to get a permit from them to do so. This permit will be good for 2 years if you get it. You have to give them fingerprints and background check information, everything else. It can take them up to 30 days to process this. And once they're done processing it and fiddle farting around, because honestly, they needed something to do for 30 days. How in modern society it's going to take us 30 days to do a background check, I don't know, but you've got to give Delaware State Police 30 days to do that. You then get this permit to purchase, and that permit is good for 2 years for an unlimited amount of firearms. Oh, you also have to get training. Now, they haven't really outlined what the training is, whether it's basic training, safety training, whatever. You have to have some sort of approved training. And we're not really sure how everyone's going to pay for that, how much that's going to cost. Now, some people think this is a great idea. Okay, let me play with this and see what we can get. We can go a little bit further and say if we have to have training and apply for a permit and go through background checks and all kinds of stuff. Think of any other constitutional right that you need that for. If they were this tight on, say, I don't know, what's coming up in November? Voting? Do you actually have to pass a test on the Constitution or knowledge of government or something about politics to be able to vote, and had to get a permit and had to pay something for it and pay to take training? All of the left would be on fire. All of the left would be screaming in the streets. How can you take away our rights? But yet when it comes to the right to protect yourself, the right to self-defense, they really don't see that as being that important. Now, they talk about it and they're saying, well, they're trying to eliminate crime. And they had some statistics, and I didn't really delve into their statistics too much. But as I was reading a lot of the articles on this Delaware, I thought it was really interesting that this was a quote from their governor. As I said in my State of the State address, reducing gun violence in our communities is a shared priority. We've made progress to keep our communities safe these past 7 years, Governor Carney said. We've banned assault weapons, bump stocks, high-capacity magazines. We've passed red flag laws, prevented straw purchases. Passing this piece of legislation is an important step. I want to thank the members of the Delaware State and House of Representatives, for Senate and House of Representatives for their leadership on this issue, along with the advocates who have supported the gun safety efforts in our state. I look forward to signing this into law. Okay. Now, that may be something he's very proud of, and that's nice, Governor Carney. Let me put it this way. They've done all this stuff, red flag laws, bump stocks, assault weapons, high capacity, regular, and it still ain't worked. Now, I hate to break it to Governor Carney and all the Moms Demand Moms Demand Action, sorry. Moms Demand Action. Is that an anti-gun group or a porn movie? Answer in the chat. Let me know what you think. They're going through all this stuff, and to me, they've done all this, and it still isn't working. So what are they going to do? Pass more. They're yet to realize that chances are the people who are out doing bad stuff with pew-pews on the street are not the people buying them in the stores. That's number one. Number two, if you got to go through all this fingerprinting and background checking can take up to 30 days, yeah, tell that to a DV victim who's got an ex-husband who's stalking her that she can protect herself in 30 days. Bullshit. There's the problem. We are writing another law. They are writing. I won't say we because I take no responsibility whatsoever for that train wreck. They're writing another law to protect everybody that will not affect people who are buying dirty guns out of the trunks of cars on the side of the road, which is the vast majority of where these crime guns come from. So when you try to figure out where the logic is from the great state of Delaware, it's not there. It's just not there. And from that standpoint, it is what it is. So Delaware, got to give it to you.
Who in God's name needs a weapon with 100 rounds in a chamber?
Yeah, that's what comes from Delaware. That's the knowledge level that we get out of Delaware. So I'll take that for what it's worth. All righty, I see people piling on into the chat here. Oh, who we have? I see Holly. She stopped in. Great to see you, ma'am. Always love to have our favorite Leaf in the chat. Coming in, yeah. Shooting club in middle school. We did too. We had a rifle range in our middle school basement. My homeroom teacher was actually the coach of the riflery team and the wrestling team, and he had a metal, like 2-door standard metal cabinet, not a fancy gun safe or anything else. And in the morning, we were in there for homeroom, kids were coming in with rifle bags and giving them to him, and he was locking them up in the metal cabinet in our classroom. So it, works so well. Yeah. Yeah, I see. So glad we have strict gun laws up here, 0 gun crimes. Yeah. So Canada's gotten rid of all the guns and all the gun crime and everything else and has been totally taken care of. Good to hear, as long as that works. Yep. Yeah, I agree with you, Mary. Their brains work about as well as their stupid gun laws do. But then again, what do you want when you got peanut butter brains up in the White House? But Delaware, again, they've passed all these laws, gotten nowhere with them, so they're going to keep on doing what's not working to try to do something else. And, of course, Mel pointed out that simple right shall not be infringed. Yeah, I don't think this is going to go very far once it gets into the whole Bruin analysis. Some of these states are doing this, and, again, I'd love to see, and I don't have the time, effort, or energy to research it, but it would be really interesting to see, once laws like this get passed, how much each state spends defending this train wreck in court, because it's going to go, and they've already said, there's one of the Delaware sportsmen's groups has already said that the day it gets signed, they're going to take it to court. So then the state of Delaware is going to spend thousands of dollars defending this train wreck, which may or may not work. We'll see. And we know California, Rob Bonta out there, he loves spending money defending all of his crazy laws. If they took half of the money they put into defending bad gun laws and passing bad gun laws into addressing crime, addressing mental health issues, addressing problems, we hear from them all the time, they want to fix the root causes. No, they don't. They love to do this and grandstand, and they can all go in November and say, we ran on tough gun control. unfortunately, the only kind of gun control that makes any damn sense is, grip high up on the back strap, mate your hands up well, smooth control of the trigger. That's gun control, or at least the intelligent side of gun control, we hope. But yeah. So yeah, gun control not working as always. Mr. Scott, I see you up there in the chat. I'm not ignoring you, sir. Just trying to sweep a couple off here as we go. Onwards and upwards. And this was an interesting one. And this we may see a lot of nationwide. The great city of Chicago. Yes, that's right. Chicago has got a new way they're going to fix gun problems in Chicago. That wonderful little town. I visited through Chicago one time many, many moons ago. Wouldn't go there now without like level 4 plates, but that's beside the point. When you look at the big scope of things in Chicago, they're trying to sue Glock. That's right. They're suing a gun manufacturer, Glock. And the reason and the whole concept behind it is they're doing it because they're saying that Glocks are too easy for people to modify and to make into full auto machine guns with like lock switches and things like that. Now, I haven't spent a lot of time looking at Glock switches. I know what they are. And yes, you can convert a standard Glock pistol into full auto with this switch thing. Don't know how it works. Not really that particularly interested in it. I don't even have a Glock to put it on. And besides, the mere act of owning a Glock switch, even if it's not on the firearm, you're looking at an ATF bust, and that would be a bad thing. I don't have a dog right now, but just in case I have a dog staying in the house, I don't want the ATF showing up because we know how well that works out. But we'll get more on the ATF later. So they're trying to say that Glock are bad because people are doing bad things with them and modifying them illegally. Interesting idea. It's one more in the lines of let's sue gun manufacturers. Now, before we said if they took the permitting thing for firearms and tried to apply it to voting, everyone would laugh and say it's crazy. Well, let's take this and apply it to anything but firearms. How about, I don't know, vehicles? Well, I shouldn't say that because Chicago is also trying to sue Kia at this point, saying that their vehicles are too easy to steal, and that's why they have so many car thefts and carjackings, because Kias are defective. They're too easy to steal. I understand, guys, but they're trying to fix anything the problem. They can find any problem in the world to fix, with the exception of, how about criminals doing illegal things? No. The problem is the guns. The problem is how Glock is made. The problem is how Kias are made. That's why people steal them. Oh, Scott, that's horrible. You hear that? He adopted a dog from a taxidermist. He went out and he comes back and the dog ate all of his tannerite. I hope he doesn't have the runs and sitting right inside your front door waiting to go out or anything. That would be awful, wouldn't it? When we look at the whole thing with, Kias, they're too easy to steal. We don't blame the car theft on the car thief. We blame it on Kia. And we're going to blame the switches on Glock. What's next? Spoons made them fat? I don't get it. Pencils made them misspell words? Logic is hard for these people. And the worst part is they're trying to do all this to attack Glock and basically run them out of business. And unfortunately, a few other states are trying to jump in also. Currently, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Michigan, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Vermont, Washington State, and District of Columbia are all looking at getting in on this whole thing. Let's all sue Glock because people can do illegal things with them. And we know that Sandy Hook, I think, is still suing, was it Remington or Ruger, for one of their shootings? Now, if they're doing something wrong and actively doing something bad, fine. If a company says, hey, well, let's sell all our guns to 15-year-olds, great. But when somebody sells a lawful item through a lawful dealer, through a totally lawful process, we're just going to drag them to court for the heck of it, right? And this, of course, will cost the city of Chicago a bunch of time, effort, and energy. Whether it pays off, I don't know. It's going to cost Glock a bunch of time, effort, and energy, which is what their goal is. It's the punishment is the process. And I'm sure by the end of the day, a bunch of lawyers will all get rich on it because, after all, great, there we go. But yeah, so yeah, we're going to sue Glock because it's so easy for someone to do something illegal with it. Next, are they going to sue Ford or Chevy or GM because it's easy to drive drunk with it? I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. And we get there, and it's like, at what point do we deal with this? Yeah. Right. Mel, you couldn't have put it better. No one takes personal responsibility for anything. I mean, hell, even Scott wouldn't take responsibility for his dog eating his tannerite. Yeah, it's always the dog's fault. Blame the dog. I understand, Scott. Blame that poor pooch. Not nice to do it. Yeah. And yes, Chicago is a little bit delusional, and I understand that. And, they've got a crime problem there. They've got an ongoing crime problem. They've had a crime problem. If they took, the Glocks off the streets, there'll be something else that someone was doing something with. They're going to do up there what Delaware has done. Let's fix all these other things and never get to the root cause of it. I have an idea. Maybe we don't have 13-year-olds carrying guns. And yes, they routinely do carry in Chicago. As a matter of fact, we're not covering the story tonight, but I picked up a story the other day. Not sure where it was out of, to be honest with you. I may try to find it later, but it was a 7-year-old and a 12-year-old stabbed an elderly lady in her driveway. I'll say it again. A 7-year-old and a 12-year-old were out riding their bikes. They were riding up and down in some woman's driveway or turning around or riding on her grass or doing who knows what, I don't know. She came outside, said something to them. They got off their bikes, and they stabbed this elderly lady. 7 and 12. But hold on. 7 and 12. Yeah. Now, I can only say that when you've got 7s and 12-year-olds stabbing people, I guess maybe they couldn't get a Glock or get a Switch or drive a Kia. I don't know. But yeah, it's rough. And Miss Holly, you are right. There is no age listed in the 2A. And the funny thing is, South Carolina just went from 21 to carry down to 18. Thank you very much. And I've had 2 people between 18 and 20 complain about that to me. And I'm like, but you know what? At 18, you can go sign. At 17 and a half, you can go sign paperwork that makes you property, quite literally, of the federal government. And for the next several years of your life, you will eat, sleep, drink, walk, and live where and as they tell you to. You can sign up for the modernist version of indentured servitude. Now, I'm not trying to throw rocks at the military by any stretch of the imagination. I have quite a few friends who have served in various branches and everything else. On the other side of that coin, if you're 17 and you're old enough to make that decision, I think you're old enough to carry. And I agree, there's no age listed in the second. And when we look at the ages of some of our founding fathers, it can be kind of interesting to go to that point. Next topic for the night is zombie guns. Now, I know we've talked about ghost guns, but the latest buzzwords out are zombie guns. And I wanted to sort of demystify, explain what they are, so when you hear about them, you can tell people how stupid they are. There is a big push about zombie guns now. They've come back from the dead and inflicting havoc on schoolyards everywhere. Yeah, at least they are if you talk to the idiots over at Mom's Demand Directions, but it is what it is. These zombie guns, well, we'll just put it to you this way. Many times when you have either a law enforcement or federal agency getting rid of a bunch of guns. Guns get turned in at these buybacks. Guns get confiscated after crimes. In some areas, the law enforcement agencies are actually allowed to auction them off and sell them. They get a local dealer to participate with it, and they're able to bring in a little cash to help fund something. Maybe go help fund another buyback or do something else. They're checking all the guns are going to lawful people. It's done totally above board through a licensed dealer who runs all the appropriate background checks. However, some areas they're not allowed to do this, and so they have to destroy these guns. Well, they send these guns out to gun destroyers. Now, these gun destroyers will destroy some parts of the firearm, but sometimes they don't destroy the entire thing. Because basically, once they're turned over to them, it's up to them how they handle it. There's nothing that says how they can and cannot handle it. Now, understand that in order to be one of these gun destroyer companies, you have to have a very expensive, very powerful machine that has a lot of wear and tear. And think of it like a paper shredder, but you put steel parts through it, hardened steel parts through it, or chromium barrels through it, or things like that. So you need to have like the super duper heavy duty industrial strength paper shredder. Now, in order to buy and purchase and run one of those machines, kind of expensive. In order the upkeep on it, again, kind of expensive. Many of these companies will actually take, and if there is some part of the gun that is usable or useful, they will take that off and they will sell those things. The reason they sell them is, hey, if they can get the guns for free from, let's say, Acme Sheriff's Department, they get big crate of guns in and they're going to destroy them. But there's some parts that are useful. If they have someone who knows what they're doing, scrap down useful parts and then destroy the rest, sell these off. The guns are off the street. They've been turned in. Again, if you have a police agency change from 40 caliber to 45 or to 9 to 10 millimeter, whatever the case may be, or again, they've got a bunch of guns that they got in a confiscation or a raid that the person was convicted, they can't get them back. What do they do with them? These people destroy them, theoretically, take them apart, disassemble them, whatever the case may be, and can part them out. Now, sometimes these parts can go to other law enforcement agencies, go to civilians, whatever. Well, the anti-gunners are now worried about the fact that these things are getting parted out. Now, I'll show you here, and it's really interesting. When we talk about ghost guns, we talk about this a little bit. When you say, what is a gun or a ghost gun? This is actually the gun. This is a firearm. If I went to my local gun store tomorrow and I wanted to buy that, I would have to go through a background check. It's got a serial number on it and go through a 4473 ATF background check, all that good and wonderful stuff. Yay. Just like if I was buying an AR or a shotgun or anything else. So that is actually the firearm. So theoretically, if a zombie gun, ghost gun comes in, they strip that part off, throw that part, which is mostly polymer with some light gauge metal components in it, in the gun shredder machine back there. They take the other parts of it, the upper slide, the barrel, sights, optic if it has it on it or anything else. They save that and they can sell that to another entity. Those can be swapped out. You have one on the right is a 9mm slide. I think the one on the left is a 40 cal slide. Glocks are very much interchangeable like that. A lot of the Glock clones are interchangeable. SIG, not so much. Smith, I'm not sure. I haven't tried with any of my Smiths, but it is what it is. But the thing is, those items there that you see on the screen are not guns. A 16-year-old can go in and buy both of those, no background check, no nothing. It's not a gun. There is no way of firing anything out of that. Now, if you have a barrel that's worn out or you want to get, the one on the left is a threaded barrel. If you want to get a non-threaded barrel, hell, I've swapped out some of the parts of mine, threaded barrels versus non-threaded, things like that. If you want to get an optics or a different color barrel, you can do that. And it's very much not the firearm. That's not the gun. You think about it, if you have a vehicle or a car, you have the VIN number, that's the vehicle itself. But if you just happen to swap, say the top off of it, you have a Jeep and you swap a hard top for a bikini top, or you take a convertible, you do something, it doesn't change what the vehicle itself is. So those can be sold through the mail, whatever, and they're listed on various sites as a lot of times as parts kits, as rework kits. You can do it yourself. Swapping them out is not a big deal. But these are now the zombie guns. The anti-gunners, and it's starting around the country, are starting to now complain that when a gun gets turned in as a whole item, that not all of it gets run through Mr. Gun Machine back there and chewed up and shredded. Okay. Now, the thing is, though, these companies that do the shredding and have these machines that law enforcement does not actually have, they usually do it for next to no money, for free. They'll come down to the gun buybacks, pick up all the bad guns, or the police are cleaning out the old stuff out of the evidence room. The company will come down, and as people who are intelligent with firearms, they'll say, okay, we'll go through. If it's garbage, we'll shred it and throw it through the machine. But if there's salvageable parts on it, part of their contract is they can salvage them and sell them. Their ability to salvage them and sell them is why they're shredding these guns, destroying these guns, using this pricey machine for free. If the anti-gunners get their way, they won't be allowed to do this anymore and take parts off and sell them. Yes, Mel, it does. Minnie has a great question here. And yes, if pistol barrels are interchangeable, doesn't it essentially nullify forensic analysis of bullet striations? Pretty much, yes. It also tends to get rid of all the tool mark analysis also, because the firing pin is located in that piece that's there. The extractor that contacts the case is also located in that. So basically at that point, all the above would be totally interchangeable and swappable outable. But from that standpoint, what do you get? Now, these companies do this, and again, you look at the cuts, the striation cuts on the slides are different. The barrels are different. The optic hookup may be different. You can do this, and again, you can customize a lot of things. I mean, quite frankly, the lower is the lower. The lower is the serialized part. And it's the same thing with AR-15 and AR-10 AR platforms. The lower is the firearm. The upper is whatever you've snapped on it that day. You can snap on a 223, 556 upper. You can snap that off, snap on a 300 blackout upper. Hey, more power to you. You've got alternate, possibility. That way, if you do break a firing pin or a bolt carrier group, something else, you can actually just swap the uppers out. The serialized license part is the lower. Again, the further they go down this road, these parts you figure largely are metal. This is where the pew-pew takes place. There's chambers up in there where the cartridge sits. When it gets hit with the firing pin, that's where the magical fiery dust makes the poof and sends the freedom seed downrange. These are heavy-duty metal parts. Therefore, if you're putting those through your gun grinder or your gun cruncher, whatever you want to call it, it's going to wear out a heck of a lot faster, number one, than just running these through it. Number two, if there is no resale value or no value to the people who have the machine, well, maybe all of a sudden, law enforcement, when they try to get rid of these, 500 guns that they got on the gun buybacks last month, the company says 500 guns. Yeah, okay, at $25 a piece, write us a check. They said, you used to do it for free. Yeah, we used to be able to support it by doing parts and kits and stuff. We can't do that anymore. We've got to destroy them all and the wear and tear on our machine. this may be, the dumbest thing that happens, because the inadvertent bad cause is going to be gun buybacks are going to get much, much more expensive. Law enforcement who wants to get rid of old weapons out of their evidence room, well, they may, if they can't part them out and get some benefit out of grinding them up, well, we'll support the grinding up business some other way. That's right, Sheriff. Write us a check every time we have to come down here. And it would be a really bad thing, but it's going to cost every community if these idiots get their way. So they're going to try to pass a law to get that piece that won't do a thing without the other piece. I promise you, you can't fire a bullet out of that. Well, you fire it out of it, but you can't fire it with that. But there's the whole push. And Moms Demand Directions and all the other anti-gunners, Anytown, are all now, you will hear about it if you haven't already. You'll be hearing about zombie guns. I can't send my kids to school without zombie guns. Okay. I mean, the next thing you know, we're going to be sitting there calling Frankenstein rifles or some other stupid thing. I'll give them this. They've got a cool PR campaign. They say the gun was thought to be dead, but now is back in circulation, killing again. Really? That you can't kill with that. We're going, again, they're going to cost law enforcement agencies, they're going to cost investigative agencies all kinds of money. Because, again, the companies that do it, they can't make money doing it. They'll either A, stop doing it, or B, they'll have to make their money somewhere and it'll get pricey. And once it starts getting pricey, we all know the best way to take something that's reasonably priced and make it more expensive, regulate it with the government involved. And we can go from there. So, yeah, that is zombie guns, if you hadn't been familiar with zombie guns. Mel, I'm trying to figure out what you're doing there. I don't know. I know one is the symbol for female. What's the other one? Nice headlights? I'm just saying, maybe I'm lost. Bob, onwards and upwards. What else do we have? I've got a good guy with a gun story, and this one really was kind of interesting to me. And the reason it was the most interesting is because of the history with it. And there's a really interesting twist at the end of this. This occurred, they said Memphis, Tennessee, but it was just outside of Tennessee. It was actually called Nutbush, Tennessee, just outside of Memphis. It was in the early morning hours of March 21st. A 70-year-old male resident who lives alone with his pooch was awakened by a subject pounding on his back door. Actually, the subject woke up the dog. The dog woke up the 70-year-old. And he gets out of bed and decides he's going to go investigate it and see what's going on. Well, lo and behold, as he's walking out of his bedroom down the hallway to find out why someone's banging on his back door, he confronts somebody in the house, physically inside his residence. Well, a shoving match goes on. He manages to push the man away. He retreats very quickly to his bedroom where he grabs his pistol. He then goes back into the hallway, opens fire, and the bad guy flees the area. Great. Fortunately, the bad guy wasn't even hit. I think he got one shot off, wasn't even hit. The suspect was found a couple of blocks away and has been taken into custody and caught some charges, and that's a good thing, right? They did a study in this area of Nutbush, Tennessee. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm a 5-year-old. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. In the great metropolis of Nutbush, I don't know too much about it. I know, again, it's outside of Memphis, and I thought it was interesting. We talked about Memphis crime the other day. Well, let's see how things are going up the road in Nutbush. Now, within a half-mile radius of his house, there have been 170 reports of burglaries, break-ins, and thefts in the last year. 170 reports within a half-mile radius of this man's house. And I'm sure this gentleman was possibly the intruder, not the resident. I'm sure he was possibly responsible for more than one of those. But so we have a situation where this 70-year-old man had a firearm lawfully, legally, responsibly to protect himself. Because in Nutbush, you couldn't just sit there and live there and just go to bed at night. No, you've got a dog to wake you up so you can get your gun. Now, I will question, if you're going to investigate whatever went bump in the night, I wish for his sake he had the gun with him, but I'm glad things worked out for the best anyway. On the other side of that coin, it is what it is when you look at the fact that this man has every reason to be an anti-gunner. This man has every reason whatsoever to be negative toward the pew-pew life. And the reason I say that, his son was shot and killed in 2016. He lost his son to firearms in 2016, said he was shot and killed. Don't know any of the details on it, really didn't dig in that much. But it was so interesting because the reporter asked him, well, even, given your history, how can you have a firearm in the house? How can you decide to have a firearm? You lost your son in 2016. How can you have a firearm in the house? And he said, well, given all the reports around the house of what's going on, how can I not? And that's when they got into the stats of 170 reports within a half-mile radius in the last year. It was definitely what it was. I'm not sure if Nutbush is near Beaver Bush Pass. I know, it's in Tennessee. Now, there's some other interesting cities in South Carolina. One of these days, I'll try to find you a story out of Sugar Tit. But anyway, and yes, that's a real town in South Carolina. Nutbush, I also found, is home or the birthplace of Tina Turner, among others. That is their big claim to fame. They do have a Tina Turner Boulevard down Main Street. So, But yeah, and I agree. He didn't lose his son to firearms. He lost his son to a moron who happened to have a firearm. Once again, we all talk about it all the time. 9 times out of 10, if I'm in here, I've got something right either on the desk or right here nearby. If I don't have one of those, it's either on me or immediately in my vicinity. And yet none of them have ever jumped up, rebelled, tried to commit insurrection and shoot me or anything else like that. It just seemed to be fine, seemed to be getting along fine. And so they're not particularly violent, mean firearms. It is what it is, folks. But this guy, again, his son, the reporter, well, given the fact you've lost your son to firearms, how can you have one in the house? He said, given where I live, how could I not? 70 years old, what are you going to do? Maybe they're broken. I mean, maybe they're lazy. I don't know. Maybe they're just lazy. They don't want to do anything. Won't get off their butt and, go out and commit any act of violence or whatever. I mean, they don't even take themselves to the range. I have to take them to the range on range day. But it was definitely an interesting adventure. But so, there's our 70-year-old good guy with a gun. And again, I'm glad the fact that the idiot who broke in didn't get his birth certificate revoked. I really am. I mean, I don't want to see anyone, get, killed. But on the other side of that coin, you've just got to wonder sometimes about, well, now what? What else? Where do we go from here with some of this stuff? All righty. Now, in order to be somewhat appropriate and safe and remotely politically correct, no offense, I've got to say goodbye to the folks on YouTube. If you want to, catch up with the rest of the show and find out the real tea, you know where to go, folks. As far as YouTube, be smart, be safe. Bye.